Hello, welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I'm your host, Trent Clark. I'm a serial entrepreneur, longtime EO member, and I speak all over the world globally and always a bunch of fun. And I am the new author of Leading Winning Teams from Wiley Publishing. And probably most people do know me because I spent 13 years of professional baseball coaching in 3 World Series. And so today I welcome my good friend and guest, Cary Chessick. Cary, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing really well. It's great to be on the show with you and to talk to you and see you.
Oh man, I've been looking so forward to this, Cary, because you and I have been friends for probably over a decade when we met in the EOYPO mentoring program, and you were, giving your time, but you were also at the time, man, a really busy dude running, a law. You were in law, you were in restaurant.com and setting the world on fire and really gracious with your time with me and one of my founders back in the day as we were building a shipping company in the Chicago area, Chicago Marine Asset Management. That was one of our brands back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I remember.
And man, we learned a lot of trials by fire on those days. But it's so good to have you. I mean, you're an Illinois guy. People really know the restaurant.com brand, Cary, but probably a lot of people don't know, man, that you've done all sorts of different things. And even I didn't know back in the day, like you're a lawyer. Like that's where you really started. You got a degree from the University of Illinois. So you started there in the Illini, and then you got a law degree from DePaul. So
Yeah.
were you at a big firm or what were you doing in law?
Well, I mean, for what it's worth, back in the day, I studied psychology at University of Illinois and realized in my own mind, I was entirely unemployable. And so I went to law school figuring I could get a job, not that I had some, tremendous desire to change the world through law. It was kind of a security blanket. And so no, I was a small firm. I was doing trial law and that's where really I got handed to me my first lesson on sales. That's where it all began. My my journey into sales, not knowing I was going to be an entrepreneur, but
Yeah. Well, I
so
think
far.
like I want to hear the story of sales because one, I told a lot of people as a longtime coach, and Harry is probably the most one of the most sought after coaches in sales that you'll ever meet. We're going to get into that in his book, which is incredible, Pitch Before Product, and the reason he wrote it, as well as how you could get it, which is on Amazon.com. And so, but man, I don't know how many times I thought Carrie as a coach. Man, it's great to have I was a strength and conditioning guy, right? So understanding the physiology of the body and what's about to happen to the body and to prepare, that was really important. But I told so many people, man, what I really needed was a psychology degree because people come in after playing and competing and even when you and I sit down, we talk business, right? Half the discussion, if not more, is the psychology of it all, right?
Yeah, yeah. Knowing what people think matters.
Yeah. And I mean, let's talk about how that served you because one of the most admirable qualities I love about you, Carrie, is that you're so product agnostic, right? Like you really don't care about the product so much as you care about what the consumer wants and meeting their demand. Like we always say, "Oh, yeah, I'll put the customer first." I mean, and I don't know if that's necessary from a customer service standpoint. That's a desire standpoint. You've really met what the customer asks. You ask the right questions in order to get to, hey, this is the product we really need because this is what they're asking for. I thought this is what they'd want. And then it turns out this is not what they want. This is what they're requesting because you listen to what they say. Is that an accurate way to? I'm not doing that very eloquently here, Gary.
It's pretty close. So let me maybe I can share the story. There's two journeys I went through. First, I can share a story about while I was a trial lawyer, and then the early stages of restaurant.com. When I say early, the first 5 years, which were a lot of pain, and both of those together help form the foundation of why I put how my methodology I get to at least that journey towards finding what the customer wants. So
Yeah.
you want
So
to hear
let's
it?
let's
You want to
start
hear
there.
it?
Let's start there because um before you tell the story of your first lesson of sales as a lawyer, which is great, by the way, because people are not thinking sales and lawyers, right?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, you're a trial attorney, right? So, are you a guy who's thinking about, hey man, like a few good men, I'm gonna be this great trial attorney. I'm gonna be setting the world on fire because you watch movies of great trial attorneys. Is this what you really want to do is be in the courtroom? Or what
No,
was driving you there?
I got into it because I figured that's how I could, pay my bills. Uh, I, I didn't know much about what it was. Law school teaches how to think like a lawyer and not how to practice. But I did dedicate, I set down this gauntlet. I said, for the first 5 years, I'm going to be the first one in, the last one out. And I'm going to learn as much as I can, in this period of time. And I learned a lot. But one thing I learned is, I don't love fighting with people. And, in my core, I want to get along with people and collaborate with people. And that's how eventually I ended up realizing my journey was in business, not in law. Uh, so, so it really wasn't that. It was, it was, it was just about putting in the hours to be an expert in my craft as best as I could as a a new graduate out of law school and getting into a new profession. So so that was it, that was my desire to be excellent and to learn.
Cool. All right. Well, tell us as you go on this learning journey, how all of a sudden this sales lesson became so valuable.
Well, this is so okay. We have this case. It's fi it the court system is not necessarily speedy in most situations. So we have this case. It's 5 years. We're working on it 5 years. We think we got this thing locked up. We're gonna win. We get we get to the trial. The trial is 5 or 6 weeks long, 18 hours days, boxes to the ceiling of data and information. We give the closing. We are super, excited. We think we're going to win. And opposing counsel stands up. Within 20 minutes of the closing statement from opposing counsel, I literally like slump back in my chair. I'm like, we just lost. I even believe that guy. That guy is way more persuasive, way more convincing, way more compelling. And what was fascinating, I had no idea I'd be, in business and an entrepreneur. What was fascinating and how I compare and contrast this is in business, we all have competitors. We have differentiation. We have different products and services and price and different people in the business. In the courtroom, you literally have the exact same set of facts, like exact. And what I realized, not at the time, but down the road when I got in business, is how hard that is to compete on exactly the same set of facts. And so the skill, what this guy was doing, just moving the words around and changing the order and creating a different story. And wow, how valuable is that? Even when you have the exact same set of facts, you can still, by leaning on the words, the order of the words, the emphasis on certain words, the pregnant pause and all those other things, you can change the outcome. And so of course you can do it in business because your companies are different from your competitors. So now that leads right into the early years of restaurant.com and where again, I didn't know I would apply this lesson, but we raised a bunch of money. We had an idea. This is how most entrepreneurs, you have an idea that you want to start a company, you want to solve a problem, you see an opportunity. We raised money, we hired a bunch of engineers, we built product, we went to market, and nobody would buy it. That was our idea. It didn't work. We raised some more money a few years later, and a very painful lesson learned. We raised some more money and build an entirely different product and go to market. It's not scalable. So this time, it's effectively no longer fundable. We can't change the product. So for about 6 months, vowing never to be a lawyer again, it was just about finding a way to how can we get customers? And so what we did is we changed the pitch, not the product. And bam, it worked. Shockingly, it worked. And that's what helped us scale up to 18,000 clients. And so it took us 5 years of pain of doing the traditional thing, building product, start having an idea, building a product or service, going to market, testing it with customers. And, lean startup came along. We did the same thing, but did it faster. And, and, and the lesson learned, my takeaway from both these things was pitch before product at its core is to reverse engineer this thing. Start at the end. What is the sales script that is the most persuasive sales script that will get your customer to buy today? And then walk it on backwards. And hopefully your product or your service resembles something related to what you just said.
Yeah. Well, I love that. First of all, I love the reverse engineering, right? I'm a huge goal guy, and I always look at this, hey, how I'm gonna do it, right? So I'm always like, hey, here's the current reality, here's our future reality. Let's work from the future reality back on the gap, right? Because I know where we want to go, but we got to come all the way back to where we're at on how we're going to get there. Then that defines our KPIs on what we're going to have to do. Then building that process behind that is such a big deal. I love the facts, like, as you know, winners find a way. I love the quote, winners, when shown data that they're losing, find a way to win. In this story, Gary, you've got this product, right? And you're like, "Oh, man, we all think it's a good product, like, it's valuable to people, and this there's a lot of winners in this. There's a consumer winner, there's a business winner, there's a cost savings, and there's a database winner. I mean, there's all sorts of different winners in it. Yet, all the data is pointing that you're losing, right? We've raised this money, and we're not creating revenue, we're not getting the subscribers that we want." And so when you what was the huge thing? Do you remember a moment that, like, you decided to go back to the pitch? When you just figured out, we know we've got something, but we're not selling it the right way. Did you start asking questions of your clients? Did you start surveying? What did you do to get the right pitch?
Well, we went out in the field and talked to prospects. And and so in its simplest form, I mean, it was 5 plus years, but I can boil it down to this for restaurant.com. This was the fundamental change. There was so much behind the scenes, way too much to, like go through it all here. But
Yeah,
the
we're not
fundamental
gonna do the Joe Rogan 4-hour
no,
show.
no, we're not doing the 4 hour show. So our initial premise was that we thought restaurateurs wanted websites, and we were going to sell them websites. We thought, and we're so fixated. That's the era where a lot of times those of us that are starting companies, we fall in love with our product, and which is natural because it's so hard. You almost have to fall in love with your product if you're gonna keep pushing the boulder up the hill. But
Yeah.
in its simplest form, this was the change. Instead of selling websites, we decided that we were gonna fill empty tables. Oh, by the way, we have to build you this website because that's a vehicle that will get the customers to come on into your store to fill the empty table. So it was such a simple thing. It was right before our nose. Like, how did we not figure it out? How did it take 5 years? Yeah, we were immersed in ourselves, in our original premise, not the pain, interest, and need that the customer wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is your, like, secret sauce, man. I mean, I don't know, it's not a secret, right? Your your superpower is that you find the pain of a client very quickly, and you lean into the product that will alleviate that pain.
Here's here with every client I'm coaching, we start with 3 things. What I love when you said, like, what's the goal, and then how do we back into it and get there? I start with 3 things. A project that most companies don't have in motion. What is your sales script? word for word. Write it out. Show it to me. What are your top three objections? What are the answers? What are the top three frequently asked questions? What are the answers? Now, make that a project with an owner. And the goal is to optimize the words, the order of the words to make it more compelling and convincing and captivating, designed to close deals today. And like I said, hopefully it has some resemblance to what you actually sell and what you do. And and the reason that is often not a project, and the reason I'm typically implementing it is think of that's not a job title. Increasing the persuasiveness of the sales script. Like, sometimes sales owns it, sometimes the founder, CEO owns it, but it's really not, that's not a job title where somebody comes in like, I own this thing. And so generally speaking, sales owns it, but
Yeah, I was
it's
gonna
not
say
like
like
a full-time project.
it feels like sales should own it, right? Or
Well, well,
marketing
yeah,
potentially, right?
yeah, yeah, or both, or both.
Yeah,
But remember, sales has a lot on their plate. Sales and a sales leader and a sales team, like okay, interviewing, hiring, compensation, the CRM, the database, the deal stages, the how many touches, the coaching. Oh my gosh, on and on and
yeah,
on. There's a million things on their plate. So how do you carve out the creative time to mine
yeah.
data and A/B test a pitch?
When I think about, us as coaches, I have a few questions that I go into that I really want to know. And things that I think are relatively basic, right? Yet, very few companies have this information. One of the things I wrote leading winning teams, right? And everyone tells me, "Oh, we got a great team." And I'm like, "Oh, show me your script of how you get the team. Show me how you're recruiting." Because I come from professional baseball, right? Where we do
Yeah,
tons of scouting. It goes worldwide, it goes global, and
yeah,
scouting layers, or da, 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 da. And it's like, oh well, if someone's got a pulse, they got a job. And I'm like, and you're telling me you got the best team. Like,
yeah.
how's that possible? You just randomly got lucky that everybody wants to be in your field and the best players out there just showed up and signed on with Trent Clark's team, right? Like, come on, man. Like, not really. So
Right,
you find
right.
out that when you really compare it to like there's a bunch of teams that are beating you up and you just don't want to admit we're not very good yet. Right. And how many my question to you on this structure, and give me these questions again after I ask you this question is when you ask those 3 things of a company and you go in for the first time, what do you think just tell me the percentage of how many of those companies have that in place?
Well, they have some form of it, meaning,
Like, maybe half of it.
well, people are selling.
Yeah,
People are selling. So they're saying something, whatever they're saying, and whether it's written down or not, whether they have a presentation deck that goes along with it or not, there's always something, meaning there might be a call recording. And hey, what are your top objections? They can tell me what they are. That's not, what are your frequently asked questions? Oftentimes they're on the website. That's not the point of it. That's the current state. That's not the desired future state. The gap there isn't a process to continually A B test and improve it day after day, week after week, month after month by mining the data from the mouth of the prospect, the things that resonate most deeply that they say that leads to closed deals. There isn't a process of continuous improvement. That's the
yeah,
gap.
yeah.
That's the gap.
Do you have a software? I assume that you're getting client surveys of asking those questions, right? Do you have a software that's backing up to collect that data and mining it?
Some of the clients have it and some don't. There are a lot of platforms. I've been using an AI platform called Chorus AI for 5 years now.
Okay.
But there are a lot of players in the space now as AI is exploding. So even Zoom records and transcribes, and they have an AI Gong, Otter. There's a ton of platforms. It's not hard to get the data. It really isn't. It's a matter of because the data is there if the call is recorded. The question is, that's where I see in many cases people stop and they're not mining the data, looking for the common threads. What are the top 5% things that resonate most deeply? What are the bottom 5% that get people to say, nope, not working for me?
Yeah.
And so, most often, let me say it this way. What is the number one objection for your company? What's the number one reason you don't close business today? And Matt,
Right.
just to, it might be price. I mean, I hear all
Yeah.
kinds of things. It might be price, but this is a take home assignment for anyone that wants to do it. What's the number one reason you don't close business today? That number one objection. And what is your response? Why don't you meet with the team and try to make it better right now? Like, call a meeting, say, let's role play this and let's take the number one reason we're not closing business and turn it into a project and see if we can make it better and
Yeah.
increase our close rate by 10%.
Automatically. Yeah.
But so rarely is that project in motion.
Mm. Yeah. And that's really kind of the art of continuous improvement, as well as
Yeah.
utilizing your team members. I mean, they're the ones on the front line. They know what the number one objection is, and everyone's got their idea, right? Of like what we should be saying to this when this happens. And my guess is that if I was looking at, oh, I've got like eight salespeople, and Sally has the highest closing rate, she's probably identified this objection and goes, oh, when they tell me this, I say this because I keep moving and like, oh, that's why her average is higher than everybody else's.
Here's what I see a lot. Uh, Sally doesn't get the objection because she has a different script.
She's
So
already built a proactive script that's
she has
addressed
found
pain.
so a lot of times the objections are being introduced and raised by the way the script and the order of the script and the words in the script. You're basically asking for the objection. And so that's how when you see, let's say you see a team of 10 people, how does this person never get that objection? And then these three people always get the objection because they say different things
Yeah,
in a different order. And so
yeah,
Sally, for example, in that scenario, if look in the order of the script, here are the three objections that come up most frequently. Where in the sales presentation do they come up? So a lot of times what we'll do is say, oh, this comes up at minute 13. Let's, if it's price, let's figure out how to, in slide 2, not slide 10, talk about all the value. So we overcome the objection of price before it even comes up.
yeah. We've just eliminated it after the 13th minute because it won't happen anymore.
Right. Because now now they're like, wow, there's a lot of value here. They're going to give me more time to talk. Of course, eventually you're going to talk about price, but you can talk about it in the context of value.
Love it. I love that. That's great. The book currently on sale on Amazon.com, free if you're a Kindle subscriber. Right now, you can get Pitch Before Product for free if you're a Kindle subscriber. But oh, check it out. There's a book, and you can go on orders on Amazon. It is $5, people. Like, and what I love about this, Carrie, and I want to talk to you is, you built this out, this walkthrough in true, young president's organization fashion, right? Like, hey, here's the kind of critical three things that you need to get from this, the takeaways, and I'm going to address them in 52-minute read or less. And so this is a book that within an hour, you are taking active principles and looking to execute that into your brand. And I love that, man. I mean, I think that's big takeaway stuff.
Thanks. That was the design. It's not to tell you my life story or what I had for breakfast when I was 5 years old. Nobody cares. I don't care. It's really just I there are three pillars of what I coach. It is a story about the three pillars that I coach, and hopefully, people read it at lunch, implement it at work that afternoon. Introduce some of the concepts. Very hard to implement all, but simultaneously at least. But there are definitely things like I just said. Why don't you make it a project to overcome the number one objection in your company?
Yeah.
As a simple, that's one of the pillars. That is pitch before product.
And by the way, people, like, it's Friday or, whatever day it is for you, you're listening to this, and you could start this after lunch and have a very good idea by close of business today exactly how to address that and build process. And what I hear Kerry saying is there's a process now around managing that objective, whether proactive and answering the question, changing your script. There's 100 different ways we could talk about how you change that, but you've addressed the number one issue. You brought your team in them, made part of the solution with your team who are actually doing the sales, right? And by 5 o'clock today, you could have already an executable strategy. And I'm a great goal guy. I told you that from the beginning. And as much as I love goals, I set them, but man, when you figure out the process, goals are achieved once and they're done, right? But when you see the process, you just do it over and over and over again. Like, you just keep getting it because the process is, you just keeps achieving and you keep raising the level of goals you can set behind that process. And that's what's changed. And Carrie's teaching that in a very, very short, direct way for you to get insight and value. And I really love that approach, Carrie, because it's hard. It's hard to read a book and take in executable strategies. And I also think it's okay that, though it may take you an hour to read, it's not gonna be fixed in an hour. Like, it takes some time to get to the work and execute it and build your strategy and answer the hard questions and develop your process. And it's okay that continuous improvement means, hey, our first iteration of this isn't the final iteration. Is that fair?
What I say is the best sales presentation is the one that hasn't been invented yet until you're closing 100% of your deals.
Yeah.
Right? So why would you stop? Why would you ever stop improving it?
Yeah.
Why is there not a process for that? And let me share. There's a very good reason. It's the companies have maybe a presentation or a script or a sales process that's maybe 6 months or a year old. Because now in marketing, we're like data geeks. We're A/B testers. Green, blue, this word, that word. Let's get 100 clicks, and then we know which one's the winner. That's the mindset in sales. But as entrepreneurs and people, what do? We come up with an idea, we start a company, we're the first people that sell it. We create the first sales presentation, the sales script, and we can overcome the objections. We're entrepreneurs. And we also say we're the CEOs. And so we have a different level of credibility that our future salespeople don't have because we're the CEO. And so what happens is we get too busy as founders and as CEOs, and we say, oh, we have to hire sales team and leaders and everything. And we're handing off our personalized sales presentation. It's all about us being delivered by the CEO to other people. They have to memorize it and learn it, even though it's not built for them. And now there's all the other admin of running a sales organization. And that's why, if the founder was selling it, there's a presumption that everyone else can sell it and that it will work. And the mentality of the sales team is I got to hit my numbers. I need to get my bonus. It isn't, oh, let me go and A/B test this word against that word. That's just usually not part of the conversation. And that's because the natural flow of how companies are started and how they grow. And that's how a year-old presentation gets handed to somebody that's hired today. And they're just repeating the things that were presented a long time ago and continuing the path. And that's why the
Yep.
process of improving it generally isn't installed into the company.
I love it. I love it. And, for folks out there who haven't heard Carrie's coaching before, Carrie has a track record of being so successful that you have to turn off the sales process because, a lot of programs aren't ready for fulfillment of new sales. Like, in a lot of organizations that have $100,000 a month in sales, all of a sudden go, hey, what if you had 150? Like, it's not a problem. We've never grown like that before. Well, it could be, and if it does, we got a production issue, right? And you've seen that. You've seen that where your sales organizations have moved so quickly and so productively that the operations all of a sudden becomes a cog to moving forward and continuing to deliver on your systems.
It's a luxury when it happens because those are good problems to have. But yeah,
They are good problems
uh,
to have. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. They are good problems to have. I mean, listen, let's talk about another problem that you just kind of identified there, which is a challenge. I'll just say this of companies that want to scale. A lot of companies come to leadership because they want to sell their business. And I run into this all the time, Carrie, where there's a couple people, maybe even one person, who's the captain and ownership of sales, often a founder and owner. And they've got a system built up behind them. And now they're like, hey, I'm ready to sell my company. And there's zero transferability because when you walk out the door, the entire sales team just walked out the door, founder. So there's an issue with that in the value of the very thing you've built because there is no process and system, or it all lies within you as a founder and sales expert, and it's going to leave upon sales. And man, I see a lot of organizations, I see a lot of baby boomer businesses on the daily who have built that structure and it's flawed.
you remind me when the founders sell and they don't understand why the next in line isn't producing the results. Well, that happened to me. And so I recognized it and I was scratching my head like, what can I do about this? How can I step into the shoes of an entry level salesperson or somebody who's, you know, path in life in sales? They love sales. They're not starting companies. We have different career paths. And so, okay, I had that career. I have a different career path, but and I alluded to this before. It's a different sales script. So I was doing trade shows at the time, and I decided to change my title for the trade show. And it said instead of CEO, it said sales associate. And I went to the trade show, and all of a sudden, I'm getting all these objections that I never got when I was the CEO. And so I'm living the life of an entry level salesperson. That's a different life than the CEO. And that's why I say you need a script, not for the founder or the CEO. You need a script for the people on the team, their education, their level of experience. Entry level sales rep with a 60,000 base. What is the sales script that that person can own and leverage to be persuasive? It is not the founder's sales script.
That's so good because Carrie, a lot of people complain about that, right? Like, oh yeah, these guys, I could fall out of a boat and hit water selling, like what's the problem down there at the beginning? And coming from professional athletics, I tried to get my first company I owned. I think I owned like fit to a T. I owned a in-home gym installation company, right? Like I was doing gyms for professional athletes, showing them how to write off their investment in themselves, right? And man, like nobody answered my phone as Trent with this company, sales associate. But if I said Trent Clark, Cleveland Indians, everybody answered the phone. They were like, oh, I'll take this guy's call. And all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute. You're like, this is a lot tougher to get through the entry door, right? Like this is a whole new,
Exactly.
I've got objections. I haven't even heard the objections because I can't even get to the people I need to have the discussion with. And I think this is where this challenge of knowing what people are going through aren't isn't realistic as a founder CEO of what a sales association on the front lines actually living. Is that fair?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. And so that's another just traditional reason why you don't see this process in work and why, there's a gap and a disconnect and you see, well, why isn't my team hitting the numbers or they're, the sales are declining, whatever it may be. There's just a gap. We need to invent the sales process and the sales pitch, the responses to the objections, the responses to the FAQ. We need them created for the people that we have on the team.
You've
And
had
yeah, I was going to say one, and within that, I do want to touch on the second pillar of what I teach that really makes this thing hum, and it's kind of tied to the hip of it. It's called stack ranking revenue. If I may, can I talk about that one?
sure, come on.
So the objections, the script, the frequently asked questions, and then all the things that come out of that to create a super well-oiled sales and marketing requires execution. And so pillar number 2, I call it stack ranking revenue. We list all goals, all tasks. I use project management software for this. We list them in SMART format, making them time bound, specific, and measurable. So time bound creates an organization with a deadline driven organization. We all have accountability. These are the things we're going to work on. This is the order we're going to work on them. This is one that's going to be due. Uh, Specific is really easy. Like just stop using acronyms and list the task so that anyone reading it would know what it is, even if they're outside the company. The hardest part for teams is to give it a revenue rank to it: high revenue, medium revenue, low revenue. But the spirit of stack ranking revenue is to get teams collectively working on the things that will generate the most revenue in the shortest period of time first before working on other things. And so that kind of sounds like common sense. Why would we not do that? Right. Well, of course we would, but that's just not how real life works. The way real life works is some people are, I hear this a lot. I'm so busy. I spend the first 2 hours of my day burying out of my inbox so I can get to my work. And then this happens all the time. People work on things they are really good at and that they love to do first, and generally procrastinate on things that are really hard for them that they don't like, which usually are the same, having no relationship to revenue. And I just say, I call that hijacking the payroll.
Yeah.
When when the employees decide what they're going to do and what order they're going to do it, having no relationship to revenue, the team is less efficient. And so when you take it back to, I have to dig into a company to see, how mature is your sales script and your sales presentation, your objections, your frequently asked questions. I create a value board. Like, give me all your value props. And are they woven into your website, into your sales pitch? Now, all these things have different implications and different priorities. And so we are teaching teams to not have a meeting, say, oh, I'll do that, I'll do that, I'll do that, I'll do that, and walk out. Like it's gonna be documented, and we're gonna stack rank the revenue of each task so we know what order to do things in. And that helps them when you talked about growth, that helps really accelerate the things that will move the needle on the sales side by by ranking them, and they have aligning the team and saying we're going to collaborate and get after it.
And then that includes even awareness around highest margin product we're selling, right? I mean, that's certainly
Absolutely.
something I run into a lot of salespeople who don't know where their highest margin and I'm like,
Right.
"Hey, you should know that, right? Like, we should know where we get our best bang for our buck here."
Great example. So if a lot of attention is on a low revenue, low margin product for whatever reason, maybe because it's easier to sell.
Yeah,
And so you have a whole team aligned and focused on improving whatever they're working on related to a low margin product instead of the thing that will move the needle the most. And so that absolutely is part of the process of how do you generate the most revenue in the shortest period of time? You have to know what to sell in what order.
yeah. That makes perfect sense. Okay, let's talk about the third and final tier.
This is called the sales and marketing pendulum. So this is a process where data, meaning the words that come out of the prospect's mouth, data in the form of words that come out of the prospect's mouth that is shared with marketing, and data in the form of high performing top of funnel marketing campaigns, taking the words, regardless of channel, SEO, PPC, social, thought leadership, blogs, content, what have you, taking the words that drive the leads and bringing them into an agile sales process where they can be used to help close deals. And so that's why I start with sales, and I say the best presentation is the one we haven't invented yet. So we can implement an agile sales process instead of a static one where we're using the same presentation from a year ago. Before we can leverage marketing data, we need an agile sales presentation. And so here's uh, here's an example. We're going after a consumer electronics company, an industry, and maybe think of it as a competitor to Ring Doorbell. And so we're on the call, and our prospect says, "The thing I need the most, I need a compelling and persuasive way for my team to convince the customer to troubleshoot and solve the problem while we have them on the phone. And because if we don't, we have to roll the trucks. And usually it's about changing the battery. And so we're like, wait, what roll the trucks? What are you talking about? And and this person says, literally, I mean, like we have to put a person or two people in a truck, go out to the home, most often to change the battery, in which case we're completely upside down on our ROI on this customer for life. It's over, game over. So that's like a real wow moment. You got to be listening for those kinds of words and phrases that come out of the prospect's mouth. We swing the pendulum over to marketing and say, I want you to run top of funnel campaigns that say, don't roll the trucks. Now, that means absolutely nothing to you and me, but it means everything to every buyer in that sector.
Yeah,
Why? Why? Because it's their words.
their language.
So you know the phrase like, "Oh, now you're speaking my language." Yeah, not figuratively. Literally, we're speaking their language by taking their words and turning them into top of funnel campaigns. And the other way, the way the pendulum swings the other way, let's say you have ads that have different copy in them. Let's say it's 3 words, maybe in SEO, and that drives the lead. They fill out a lead form. So I want to talk to a salesperson. The salespeople can regurgitate the static and templated form to say, sure, let's set up a Zoom meeting and then give the exact same presentation that they give to everyone else. Or they can take those 3 words, integrate them into their follow-up email. Maybe now they, that means something for that company. And maybe in slide 2, instead of slide 10 on their presentation, that's that's what they do. They incorporate slide 2 that addresses those words. And what you're going for here is you want that person that filled out the lead form to say, wow, like these people really get me.
I love it.
Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. I mean, for everyone out there, I think if they're not understanding this, of course, you can easily pick up the book, right? Amazon.com, Pitch Before Product by Cary Chessick, founder of restaurant.com, longtime coach, lawyer. Cary, tell them how they can find you before you got to go. I know you're a man in demand because of the book and interviewing. So I know you got to run here, but I wanted to make sure, how do they find you?
Well, I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn. And my company name is called Profitology, profitology.com. And you can reach me there. And my email is Cary at profitology.com.
Cary, like, I know you're going to have a ton of impact on a lot of organizations and a lot of sales teams by this book. What would be your recommendation for someone once they grab the book, read it? What's the next steps? What do they got to do right now?
It depends on the capacity of the organization. I often
Yep.
say that, you know, what's your capacity for output? How fast can you move? And oftentimes this is something I measure. I look at how many tasks, how many to-dos can the team churn out over what period of time? And that's part of documenting all the tasks and putting them in order and seeing what the output is. And oftentimes the CEO thinks we're holding a fire hose when it's actually a garden hose. And it starts to like reality starts to set in. Like, wait, we're working with the garden hose. So what are the things we need? If we want growth like a fire hose, what are the systems we have to implement in what order? And so before I answer that, I really have to dig under the hood. But like I said, the easiest thing to do is take your number one objection and look at the response, see if you can make it better. Any organization should be able to call a meeting and make that happen. So
Yeah. And it,
So if you can't, it's gonna be hard to implement everything simultaneously. There takes all it's a lot of moving parts in the company, and especially in sales and marketing, and all the people involved. But but most teams should be able to execute the one thing,
yeah,
and I think success builds on success. I know you know this from your career. If you can execute one thing, I'm not gonna have you execute 10 things if you can't execute one. So let's see if we can execute one.
yeah. And I love that, like spending a quarter really to me, diving into that number one, getting it right, really, really complete that process on it, look at the numbers come up, and then come back to, you know, test number 2, what's your next subject that, you're gonna tackle on your sales or marketing strategy? Because, get this one thing dialed in, and I mean, this is the number one objection, right, you're facing right now, so you're getting it all the time. So it's clearly prevalent in your business, and resolving that will have massive impact. I think it's a great suggestion for everybody out there. So thrilled Cary Chessick could join us today. His new book, Pitch Before Product, super excited about it. You can pick it up on Amazon.com. On the leader on for Winners Find a Way, we are live every Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. You can check us out on LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, and on the Leadership YouTube channel. And then, of course, we welcome you. We are having up the retreats in Italy this summer, which is going to be incredible. Big Italy with myself, Ethan King, Rachel Weaver, 3 authors coming together, talking all about growth, AI, and branding, which I'm super excited about that. I mean, you can't beat Italy in the summer. Come on, man. Let's just go. Yeah, this is your time to get away and develop a little bit about your business. It's going to be a fun little walkthrough for 6 days in Italy. And of course, everyone can buy my new book, Leading Winning Teams, on all the major networks, pre-selling today on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. For everybody, thank you so much for joining the show. We'll see you next time on Winners Find a Way.